Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. We continue our session is dedicated to the issue of modernization of infrastructure. It's my pleasure to announce you the participants of this part of our session. Rosella Ternevetsky of Strelka Bureau, Tourist Bureau from China. Mr. Kauczynski, deputy head of Primorsky of the city of Vladivostok. Anatoly Melnik, advisor to the head of Vladivostok, the member of the Union of Architects of Russia. We're going to discuss a very tough issue of the condition of roads. You raise this issue, sir, and our task is modernization of infrastructure. It's rather a painful topic for Russian urbanistics because we are the most important things that our urbanistic was concerned with was from Soviet to post-Soviet state of mind. It's post-Soviet city. In the post-Soviet city, we had some areas that were clear how they were developing, but the networks, when it comes to the infrastructure, this is something that we have inherited from the Soviet Union, from the Soviet Union state, because the Soviet Union was able to develop those networks of infrastructure. In my opinion, that was now we're just reconstructing those networks left behind from Soviet Union times, and in the conditions of contemporary situation, how the economy is developing today, this remains an issue. Besides the growth, besides just thinking of how we could spend the money, we should choose what are the priorities: the schools, the roads, the sewage system. What is more economically profitable to invest into first? What are the KPIs, key indicators of performance? Formation of these networks becomes how to get profit, generate revenue, how we should. This remains the area of search and experiments. I don't think we would be able to find very ultimate answers for a specific region like the Russian Far East. Nonetheless, it would be reasonable to hear your opinions. And I would like to give the floor to Ms. Blugakova, the head of Office of Municipal Projects of Bank of Moscow. Well, my presentation would be very closely related to banking.
So, there are different approaches, and the problems for the contractors are the same. And the next slide, please. From the former times, we've got a good infrastructure, and it answered the demands, but as it doesn't answer the present demand well, neither economically nor that is not the fixed assets depreciation. That's not about the functionality of this infrastructure. The same market relationship in energy, and probably heard about the alternative boiler, and that would be the alternative way of preserving. And I'll speak about things that would be developed and how the bank can work on it. And what is the constraint? Bank of Moscow is positioned. We invest a lot in the housing and municipal utilities, and last year the credit portfolio and the infrastructure was 247 billion rubles and only 18 billion was in housing and municipal utilities, and it could be much more. But what are the untransparent system of payment with the suppliers of facilities, and the absence of long-term tariffs, and now their legislation works, and now we think that in the Far East and in Vladivostok there is an opportunity that gas has come, and it gives an opportunity to use the long-term tariffs, and it will lead to the changes in the cities and bad financial condition of if the contractor 80% of have the negative balance, and this kind of contractor is not suitable for the bank. It's impossible to give him funding, and as for calculating for the house and municipal utilities, and this is not quite actual for the Russian Far East because it was they were straight payments, and the managing companies came later here, and there are some methods of dealing half administrative, well, but the situation is that the collecting of payments is about 90 to 98%, well, but the debts are increasing, and they're increasing on behalf of the population and from on the supplier side, and mostly they're increasing from the budgetary organization, boilers, in the energetic sector, and a lot of court cases and different resources, investment resources to use. Well, that is a big issue. There is a legislation initiative. There is a bill about state information in communal housing and communal utilities. Well, but all the bills will be able to see in the system, and according to the system will be having payments, and they will be calculating on the level of the bank, well, for every contractor of resources, and the system is working in Moscow, and they have less problems, and that's true. But it doesn't work not completely well because the legislation foundation is not still stable. Well, and the Bank of Moscow is still observing and supervising the system, and but it is working efficiently well, but it works administratively, and that is not the economic system we would like to get. Next slide, please. And also about this centralized payments, why is it needed? In our housing legislation, payment is done in 1 month and a half, and it leads, unfortunately, that we do not switch off central heating, and that is not our only practice. Well, but there is one big company, Violi, and as one of the basic principles of this company, water is the resource which is needed permanently, and we'll have to do everything well, so to have it all the time, in spite of the fact. They don't say like that, but that's not a question of payments, well, to decide it either this way or that way, well, but the thing is, well, but not to pay, well, as for non-payments, well, we're having credit talks. Well, you may hear, for gas or heating, I'll be paying only having the decision of the court, and such delays, well, have become the normal practice. And to speak about the development of the infrastructure, that's a big issue. Well, next slide, and the key problems. Why there are a few projects. The projects in the infrastructure have to be a long-term, especially in water supply. If to speak about fund capacity, well, it is the biggest sector in so water supply is the second, and it will cover 20, 25 years. Well, but nobody is able now to give to provide funding for such a period. Well, and we are working with the tariffs. Well, 28 rubles per 1 cubic meter of water. Well, and that's clear. Well, that it's impossible, and money is needed, funding is needed, and we'll have to think about funding and the bill 416. The infrastructure of water should be municipal or governmental. That's what is stated there, and it seems to me that the legislative basis is not well thought, and how it can be developed. It can be equaled. Well, that the person who is responsible for that is the municipal budget. The municipal property today as a loan to you cannot give to the bank. Well, the utilities, water utilities, well, to the bank. And as for concession, that is the risky instrument of the private state entity. Well, and different methods of governmental private partnership, well, don't work in this issue. And as for the world practice in the countries where there are the same bills of supply and water, specifically in Germany, and it is municipal budgets are the contractors. Well, they're built and then give for exploitation. Well, and so then it's included in the payments, and so 25 years it works well. And there should be co-financing on behalf of the budgets, and in the regions who are thinking about it, well, so it works. So we have a shortage of the technical things in projects. And for example, you may come to the investor, but they have bad quality documentation, especially in small areas. Well, and it's needed, well, to introduce grants, well, regional grants, if budgets allow, well, or better to have federal ones, well, to provide funding for technical documentation which is appropriate. And that's what was working. The financial structure, and Birdie, and the analytical agency is working in Germany. Well, first they develop the projects and then sell. As for the tariff regulations, I have already told you. Well, but I inquire to the regional authorities. Well, please think about tariffs where it's possible, where it can be self-paid. As for water supply, I have already said that there is a big problem of water supply in the legislation, and I'd like to draw your attention. The forum is urban, and there are not well thought the projects of territorial development. Such projects, well, do not have good technical decisions, because only in St. Petersburg I could see the projects. Well, at the planning meeting like that, it was announced, well, there should be shortage of use of water. Well, but all around the use of water supply, well, has dropped 4 times, but people are using less and less water because of different reasons. Probably because of its high value, and the points are shifting. We are moving to the restaurants and even more. And coming from this, today we're having a serious infrastructure problem. Well, to change the network of water supply because of the bad flow. Well, but we're still projecting big volumes of capacities, and because of high standards and it's not acceptable, completely acceptable. And as for hot heating and preparing for central heating should be obligatory. It should be in every house. And the next slide, please. Not to say that everything is so bad, because legislation system has moved a lot. Well, and what we are proud of, and thanks to the summit, APEC, well, all people know about sewerage system. Well, first it was the 2% of the what is said, and purifying, and will become 80%, 100% of pure water cleaning is in London, or that's important. 100% is important. Well, but in London and St. Petersburg, it works. As for the reconstruction of cleaning water, we are for 7 years, funding was provided because only the governmental goal, the funding was found, and there was co-financing with, and the municipal entity is the contractor, and so to build for 7 years, and it is not always. Well, the construction period 1.5 years, and for 7 years, well, money will get back. And there is a state program, the regional program, which says that how and what for, on behalf of what it will work. Here is a map where we can speak about the projects, infrastructure projects. Mostly I was speaking about the housing and municipal utilities, hospitals, kindergartens, and they're being organized, and we wish them to have more, and for the country itself, and they can work more, and there are opportunities, but there are budget limits, and every project has the economic volume, and we may not eat everything well, but such projects need to grow well, and in the nearest 5-6 years there should be the change. And in Vladivostok, there is an opportunity, well, to change it for the fuel, and it leads to the increase of an. In this presentation, here in Vladivostok, in the territory in Khabarovsky Krai, the fund for house repairing, there is a novelty. Probably that would be a new resource for funding while planning of the infrastructure, the net infrastructure. It's needed to consider if we use calculators of water in every house, well, the situation will change, and modernization of housing and municipal infrastructure in cities could be synchronized, and it could be done well, so we could citizens use it effectively. Thank you so much.
All right. I hope you wouldn't mind if I would ask a question. You have very specific presentation. Nonetheless, I didn't quite get what you were saying. You have the gigantic industry, and nonetheless, you're saying 80% of the enterprises that are working in this industry are almost bankrupt. I can understand. Are we paying not enough for our bills? Or is it just like a special character of this industry? As an industry, as a banking person, could you please answer me? Well, I'm working in the banking industry only for a year, and for utilities, I have been working in the utilities industry. I've been working my entire life. if we're talking about the structure of bills, that's slide number 7. That's what it should be, and that's what it is. Please have a look. We're paying about 24% for a household, and the rest is for utilities. And at the normal state, it should be 60 to 50. So the maintenance of the house should be done in such a manner that our final bills should be lower. And the relations between them is such that when we are calculating the final price, it's not matching with factual life, reality, which is understandable. It happens that we have a great cash imbalance because between what we're paying, and instead of spending this money, we're spending more on. It's because of the imperfect structure of the industry. I have a question to Leonid. Sir, please, can you answer? We have this case when we have a project from Moscow that relates to the development of Vladivostok, infrastructure and heating. How do you evaluate this project, and how adequate are they here? Could you please share your opinion with us? Any project that are implemented in the territory of a city are always needed and adequate because this is attraction of investments, the use of local resources, and I believe that the city where we live needs that. Thank you very much, sir. I would give the floor Rosalie Internovetsky, who would look at a different infrastructural problem. What are the opinions? The opinion is less tragic there than utilities industry. Nonetheless, please. Good day. I would like to speak about the results of our research, about our studies that we have done in the spring of this year. We were looking at modernization of high schools with consideration of requirements to the modern studies and learning in the city of Moscow. Can you please show me the next slide? Next slide. Sure. Most of the buildings that were built during industrial development of Russia, where the production was a major drive of the economy, the conveyor production was used for building of the schools. Everything was scheduled with the specific plans, the space and the functions. And this story touched upon the schools. Here we can see a school in St. Petersburg. It looks very similar to a factory. The school was built similarly to the factory, where the output product was the citizens who were produced at different facilities, the classrooms. The school ring was similar to the production facility ring. And as we're looking at the end of the 1980s, with arrival of post-industrial era, this has transferred to schools have started to transform. The schools were becoming multifunctional centers, as it happens now in the shopping centers, transportation hubs, sports, scientific clusters, and so on. In Europe, for example, schools have become an equally important community center that offers a great number of functions, of scenarios and agendas. In Denmark, we have a photo here. New city school, Arterium. And on the left, you can see a school in Venice. This is a shared communal space, and the person is choosing whatever he or she decides to do in these conditions. It becomes a center of communications of a spatial community. And at the same time, if we're talking about the Soviet schools, industrial schools, there is a great deal of differences. The difference was that it was a completely different way. For every function, there was its special designated classroom or space, the library, the canteen. All of these are separate locations, sections of the building, while in contemporary schools they are all quite often intermixed. The ideology of such school is that schools are uh, need to be adapted for people, adapted for contemporary persons. And this ideology is reflected in the infrastructure. Can you show me the next slide, please? At the same time, what is important as for transformation of a factory school concept into contemporary factory schools were the matter of subordinates from principal's office to the classrooms and so on. The city, which is the school that is the city school, has more of shared space. It encourages such a development. At the same time, an important component of life of school is a mixed-use approach. We have discussed a lot about the city infrastructure, the crisscrossing of the scientific functions. The same applies to the schools in the post-industrial society, as it becomes a central community centers. Show me the next slide, please. What is important in post-industrial school is removal of a system of classrooms, transformation of space. For example, you can see the photos of a school in Singapore on the right, whereas you don't have particular classrooms, students are engaged into different activities, and the space looks more like entertainment area, where they have different locations where kids can do whatever they want, which means that they have more interesting assignments. They have an opportunity to communicate with each other, and they're working in the system of projects. When kids, instead of schools, get some project based on which they are learning a new material. At the same time, an important component is the fact that there is no functionally empty spaces, which we do have a lot in the factory schools concept. For example, we have recreational areas in Russian schools. They don't have any. They don't have any particular functions besides being used by kids when they're running around playing football, and this is due to the fact that in our standards, per each kid, we should have 2 meters of recreational space, which has the only function of communication. At the same time, in post-industrial schools, all of the space is split into different between different functions, and it encourages kids to be more occupied with. The management of kids is done not from the principal's office, but by the fact that kids are offered different opportunities and different behavioral patterns. What's also important is the fact is factory schools are isolated spaces from a communal life of a community, as it happens with most of Russian schools, former Soviet Union schools. They are usually gated communities. They are hidden behind the gate. In post-industrial countries, new schools are built as a community center. Architecture of schools is such that it shows that it's open for a local community. In Finland, for example, the new schools are not called schools, they're called community centers. So the school becomes a community center for this local community. People could come and use different services which are available for the schools is athletic facilities, cultural facilities, and so on. So people become more engaged with life of their community because they have a place where they could come and spend their leisure time. The value of this school is increasing in the community. Next slide, please. I would like to come to the Russian construction standards, which are reproducing the factory school approach. If we're looking at our legislation, it happens that in the average, each kid in our country has about 17 square meters of school per person. And if we're looking at, and from the governmental perspective, the normal conditions of life, if the kid has no less than 10 square meters of living area, that's in Moscow, and 9 square meters in St. Petersburg, and it happens that public life prevails over the private life. Can you show me the next slide, please? How does it happen that we have such huge spaces in school? The school legislation in Soviet Union started to form since 1958, and in the beginning there was no sports facilities. After that, we started having sports facility. Now we have 15 square meters of space in school per kid, and this trend is increasing, which is related to this problem that I would like to highlight now. This is due to the fact that in 2012 we had a reform of education. School programs, curriculum have changed, but the norms remain the same, the Soviet ones. Here on this slide, it shows the calculation of index for a school with a total population of 1,000 people, where we have 32 classes, 32 groups of kids. It shows the utility of use of space in school. The fact is that if you have reached the unit to the measure of 1, it means that you are excessively abusing the space. The optimal story is when the space is loaded by 80%, which means that you can effectively run the school without, getting insane when you are developing the curriculum. So if you're looking at this utilization index in schools, it happens with the programs that we have. We're overloaded with the facilities in sports, and we're overloaded with laboratory classrooms, labs, and classrooms for music, and universal classes are underloaded. So it means that some 50% of the total of time used by these classrooms is just literally wasted. So, and maintenance of each square meter per month is about two euros. So if we continue replicating the same story in the new schools, the government is doing a lot of efforts to develop the cities, to construct new cities, new schools. It was decided that in the near future, our kids should study only in the first shift in the mornings. They should not study in the afternoon. We will continue building new schools, and at the same time, we're reproducing the old system that has a poor efficiency. We're building schools that would be wasting resources because they're hitting too much space. In Moscow, construction of new schools, the cost of a square meter is about 2,000 euros per square meter. We have colossal money spent. They're spent ineffectively. And now the need for reform is mature. We should change the legislation, and we think that these changes should be introduced based on several principles that are identified here on the slide. The understanding that learning processes should be flexible. The classroom approach is an old system, outdated. The classroom should become smaller. We should have more of transformable classrooms that split classrooms into sections. And we're losing this traditional way of teaching. It's no longer relevant. Kids want to do more of individual work in groups, and this should also be adapted. The facility should be adapted for this. And the most important thing is that a complete architectural review of concept of school from the position that central community space, which has its communication facility infrastructure, where we are creating the new agenda, and which is the center for local community, not only for the school kids themselves. Thank you very much.
Rosalie, I would like to ask you. Yesterday we attended the new university building, and in the center there was the core of the university, a big hall with the side of the sea. But there was a feeling that it was something false. The main thing that the processes are going in a different place, and there was no social life, active social, and something that was is happening in Venice. Well, if you introduce the schools like those, well, it will work like and the halls will be only just to invite the president and to show and then to lock and not to allow the other people to come. There are two answers. On the one side, well, there is a question to organization of the specific university, and if the flows which are organized like those that when you come and it looks false, well, but probably the floors are working in different place and something is different. But we have not met at the university. But as for the second part, the president and that the schedule is formulated in a different place, that is a question to the administration of the university. If there is more space for creativity and initiatives at the university for students, and if it is shown, if it is developed by someone, and if there are ratings, student ratings, and something will be broadcast, and we have a hope, yes, we do. And there is a question to the management of the university. You told that we have 15 meters per one student. In China, about 7 square meters per one student. And as for rating side, and that is about efficiency in education, that is in England, 10 square meters, and Finland, 12 square meters. So we have a school, we have extra 700 square meters, a school, if school 1,000 square meters, and the cost of 1 meter is 2,000 euro, but if we shorten, that would be right, and it will be right on behalf of the educational process because it has changed. Well, and also also about funding because if we exploit the hall is used at school a little, and only 8 days it's occupied, And if we speak about rehearsals, so mostly it is empty and there is a repairing. And you told about 2,000 euro per 1 meter and a school for 1,000 students. We spend about 15-20 million euro per every school. 2,000 per construction. Could you interrupt? Wouldn't you interrupt me? What is your question? We're speaking about school and about the structure, and I would like to mention that we spend extra 15 million euro per every school. And what is your question? You interrupted me. Please answer. Do you have any other questions? Thank you. Well, from zero to 20 million dollars. Thank you, Rosalia. Now to a more pleasant issue, ecological issue.
Хорошо. Добрый день всем. Для меня большая честь выступать на этой конференции, на этом форуме. Спасибо большое Московскому урбанистическому форуму, Сколково, всем гостям и всем организаторам, которые организуют это мероприятие. Я из Гонконга, в данный момент живу в Пекине, работаю в компании, которая называется Turenscape. По слову Турен, два иероглифа, видно «человек Земли». То есть вот здесь на нашем логотипе изображен человек и то, как он прикреплен.
And create our environment. So what our office are doing, it's urban planning, landscape design, architecture, multidiscipline office, design office, also have engineering in-house. So we see all these things ties together because we are facing integration of problems at the same time, especially in China. Okay, so urbanization and city expansion is something that we cannot deny. Everywhere it's happening. Our city needs to be expanded. In China, there's about over 50% of people are living in the city right now. And it's growing every single year, about 3%. 2.85% are growing every single year. And then in Russia, I think most of the people are living in the city, especially in Moscow. So statistics are showing about 73.8% of people are living in a city. So how do we design an infrastructure that could sustain people to move into the city and at the same time to create green spaces and ecological spaces for them to live? So China, we have made a lot of mistakes right at the beginning. We are building a lot of great infrastructure, which is monofunction. We channelize the river. We build big dams to stop flooding. And then at the same time, we learn from the American with this jumbo culture. We adopt the system of building a dream city. So this is what we call beautiful and identity. But at the same time, this building could happen in anywhere. Also in Dubai or everywhere in the world, in Moscow, in Russia, in China. So we call this problem or urbanism a little feet urbanism. So little feet, this is what happened in China back in the days. For thousands of years, young Chinese women, they have to force to bind their feet in order to be to get married to these certified elite like nobles. So they are forced to bind their feet, and this is called beautiful in the noble sense. So this has been going for many years, and we call this little feet because we constrain the ability, we constrain the productivity, and also it's with low performance. People who bind their feet, they are not able to walk around by themselves. They are meant to be served. They are meant to be have people around them to serve them, to walk around. So right now, our urban city are developed based on this little feet idea. So maybe in the ecological point of view, how do we actually unbound our feet? So we need a revolution. We need a new concept, a Bigfoot concept to solve different problems, because after all this little feet urbanism, China facing a series of flood, drought, pollution, and habitat loss at the same time. So you can see the middle is China, and on top is Russia. After this 20 or 30 years, it's all brown. It's a brownfield, China, basically, after all this urbanization. So it used to be very green, but now it becomes a brownfield. So how do we restore all this problem? So we need to think about nature. We need a revolution. We need to put nature at the first place. So we call it Bigfoot approach. So providing ecosystem services, working with water as the backbone to drive the entire master plan, to design the whole city. So this is our main goal. We have established a planning framework called the negative planning. So what that means is reverse planning from the traditional concept. So we put ecological, we put ecology, geography, biodiversity, cultural heritage, and recreational, all these systems together as one processes. And then we combine all this to create a pattern. We call it a security pattern. So to map out infrastructure, before maybe we call it road, gray infrastructure. Right now we want to map out a green infrastructure for urban renewal, for urban growth. So we want to create this infrastructure to set a backbone for us to develop our city. So we have done different projects across different scale. The first project I want to talk about is we are commissioned by the Chinese government to study the whole China, basically. So we want the nation needs to be expanded. So we want to map out to give guidance of how the nation should expand in the future. So we analyze the topography, the geography, the water system, the flooding issue, the flooding plain, and also the erosion that will take place. So we don't approach design just by drawing, but we approach design by having a scientific and analytical process before we start our pen to design. So we create a pattern. This is in a national scale to map out, to give enough traces for the government to know where they should build their new city, where they should start developing, and where they should restore nature in general to have a sustainable living in general. So from the national scale, we jump to the municipal scale. This is in Beijing. Again, this is whole Beijing. And then we are asked to develop ecological infrastructure for the city. So again, same process. Analyze the geography, the hydrology, water system, flooding issue. So after this process, we have mapped out 3 different scenarios for the city as a guideline for them to develop, to know where they should develop, and at the same time, how much they should develop. So this is based on a minimal kind of ecological infrastructure to put into the city. So you can see all this white space in here for development. And then if it is in a moderate ecological infrastructure secure pattern, we want to secure more space for nature to stay, to give more green space to the city. So this is a moderate scenario. And then this is the ideal scenario to have both the nature and people to live together. So that will give enough evidence for us to know how we should develop, and also for investor, for everyone, how they should build the city as a roadmap, as a blueprint. So in the middle scale, this is actually under construction. It's a 22-kilometer city. It's an eco-city in Wuhan. So This is the city that is undergoing. There's about 200 more of these cities are going to be built in China in the next 20, 30 years. So how do we actually create a framework for the city to develop in a sustainable way? So again, same process. We mapped out where is the ecological corridor, where is the water system, how do we blend in cultural, school, institute, all these things together, working with the infrastructure, the green infrastructure, because school will need open space. All the amenity offices will need all these green spaces. So all based on this green infrastructure, we subdivide the parcel that we can allow for development, because these two things could go at the same time. It's something that we cannot avoid. So we develop a slow traffic system along the water because people want to be close to the water. So and then for a low density, we can allow more natural things to happen, for nature to take over. And in a high density area, how do we also compact the nature together at the same time? So this is a built project that I'm going to show you. It's a river project. It's about 13 kilometers in length. This river is about 13 kilometers. It was dead. It's almost dried out. It's a garbage dump. Everyone just put their garbage there. So water quality is something that we want to secure for the city. So how do we develop the city? Because riverfront, they want to develop a riverfront to have a park for the city to urbanize and have a nice waterfront. So what we have studied, it's based on the history. We study it's a natural river. But then in the past 10 years, we channelize it, the government channelize it, and then putting landfill on top of this river. So the ecological function, basically, it's not happening because water is restrained in certain places that river cannot flow smoothly or naturally under the soil. So we channelize it. It's actually damaging the ecological system because you do not, with all this stone and concrete embankment, you restrain the space for water to flow. So if rain happens, it's actually increasing the velocity for river, for the water to travel. So that's why we demolished the embankment and we introduced back the natural water course. So in 2 years from now, the project is built. So from a dead garbage dump, in 2 years it turns to be a natural, nice linear park. So the water quality was grade 5, so you are not allowed to touch it at all. Now, after all this ecological restoration through inner rivers, through these wetlands, using plants to purify the water by itself, now the water, it becomes a grade 2, grade 3 water that people can actually touch it. And different activities could happen. We tend to use, because it's a large park, about 13 kilometers, maintenance is a big problem. So how do we design a landscape in a way that requires lower maintenance? So we use wildflowers, we use wild grass, so nature to take over. So now it becomes a nice park for people to work, people fish along the river. It was a garbage dump before. The last project that I'm going to show is it's in Yongning province, it's in Zhejiang province, which have serious flooding issue. So when we get the project from commission from the local government, they are coming with us. So with a problem, they have built an embankment, a stone embankment and a concrete embankment right at the beginning, and they are questioning. They're asking us, how come it's still flooding? Flood is still happening. So we basically tell them, this is the problem because you not allow water to flow through smoothly and naturally under the soil. So we suggest them, after a huge debate, after a huge fight with the local government, we managed to convince them to take down a small portion of the river, about 1 kilometer long, as a pioneer project to test out whether this natural system, natural way to treat your embankment to solve the flooding issue, whether it's working or not. And it's proven that it works because we create a different terraces, different water level, and create different soil level and create different inner ponds in a river. So it's based on the 20-year floodplain and 50-year and 100-year floodplain. So we design in a way that we work with this parameter. So that's why we need the analysis, the GIS analysis right at the beginning before we even start design. So now it becomes from a hard edge embankment and becomes a natural edge, a nice linear park, which brings additional real estate value to the neighborhood and also enjoyable places for people to live. So the question that I will leave it to here is, this is China, on top is Russia. So I hope Russia will not make the same mistake as what we have done before, because you guys have a lot of natural resources and everyone is developing, every city needs development, which is true, but we have to find the right way to develop for our future. So how do we design our ecology? Right now, it's not about aesthetic anymore, but how do we design ecology in a way that we can survive for a sustainable future? Thank you.
Stanley, thank you very much for an impressive presentation. I have one question.
Go ahead.
In fact, you said that you make the proposals of new cities and also about how the river must be traced. I don't understand. In China, you don't have state norms and regulations about where school must be, what is the distance between the river and the new buildings and so on. It is the question of your bureau, or it is the question of the state? Because in Russia, all these things are regulated by the state, and we can't invent here anything. Thank you.
That's actually a very, very interesting question, because we do have a certain regulation. We do have the 20-year, 50-year, or 100-year floodplain in general. So all these rules are in place. So we have to follow this. But how do we design it? And again, it's through a different, because in China it's a different system. When the local government or the municipal government and also the federal government say this project should go, then it will go ahead directly. So when maybe the local government, the city mayor say, no, maybe we don't want this project. But when the federal government say, it's a good project.
No, it's not quite different with us. We also have something common. Yeah.
So right now we have done about 200, over 200 ecological cities in China. And we keep pushing this idea. It wasn't working. I would say Turenscape, our office, are doing maybe only 1 or 2% of projects in China. But we keep pushing this idea forward and forward. And now there's a lot of changes, because in the government policy, we start to see the books, the regulation, they're actually adopting this system, the negative planning approach, as a framework for a city to develop. So whenever we see, okay, negative planning, that's good. It's not on our name, but it's good that the city and the mayor will learn from all these examples. And occasionally, because the president of our company is also the dean of landscape landscape planning and architecture college in Peking University. So he always constantly gives lectures to the local governments to tell them what is the right way to do things and educate them to have different opinions, like what we are having now, to integrate all these things together. So we believe it starts off not just from Bigfoot, from a small local villagers, but also from the top. So how do we make the top-down process to be more integrated with this idea of ecological infrastructure?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Леонид, вы очень бурно реагировали на... Да, если можно...
Leonid, you were reacting so actively last century in Italy. Poor people in England were building cheap vessels and shipyards and developing cheap women with the same purposes, and probably in 100 years they will be building nice temples. But these fantastic projects on construction, England would not exist well in this case. Probably that's the difference in the national character. In the Anglo-Saxon tradition, it is accepted while the periods of flourishing, and it was connected with geographical discoveries and territorial adjustments. Anatoly, I wanted to ask you what about Vladivostok compared to China? That's a very interesting topic, and as far as I understand, if we speak about the infrastructure as a whole and about the engineering infrastructure, social infrastructure, transport infrastructure, and so on, and everything is so interesting. But there are specific things, especially for our city. If we were told about the aesthetics of small feet and big feet, we were shown the project, and I could see the aesthetics of the small project and how the project may get in the dense construction, and there is the necessity of the ecological zone, the recreation of the public zone, and somehow it is tight, may become like the small food of the Chinese woman, and we have spaces, and we have a vision of rivers, and specifically here in Vladivostok, some became too polluted, like for the wastewater on Первая речка and Вторая речка. We have ideas, how it may be changed, and to change the evil for the benefit and transform the system. But as for the social infrastructure, there is some specific things as well. And there are constructed territories, and we're developing the project of the urban area, and the schools have been formed. Nevertheless, the new projects have to include the complete use of schools, kindergartens, but the schools have been formulated, and there is a shortage there, but we have no kindergartens, and it's too difficult. It was difficult to get it back. And now, as for the social infrastructure, planning in the constructed areas, the development of the environment, where there can be zones for temporary presence of children while having schools at the same time. And there is a school on the island, Skotovo, and there is housing. And there are only 3 schools, and there can be no more than 3 schools, because it has these schools are equipped completely well. But if we speak about new areas, for new housing, that is fair, and we have the unique thing for 25 years. The area where the new schools are built, and what is happening there, what's wrong, and what about kindergartens. And as for the engineering infrastructure, a little bit, a few words. Okay, you can say as much as you want. As an architect, I'm a feeling that energy supply and the distribution networks 2 years ago, there was a bill to prohibit to have high voltage lines in the house in the urban areas. But we are having high voltage lines, and 110 kilowatts, and even in this downtown, and people live in the electric fields, and like in books of Ilf and Petrov. And the area is also not ozonized, ozoned, but in general, to sum up, as for the lines, the question is, there should be the distribution networks and the owners of those networks, and there are plans to transfer those lines well, and at the same time to use it efficiently. And why do the companies need to do that? I suppose, I don't know if there are companies, well, who implement it. In Moscow, that's easy. The transfer of cables in Moscow is $100. And the developer can buy it, and then to construct it again. Well, in fact, it is happening like that here in Vladivostok, but in reality, the developer is doing that well. But I think that there should be a different instrument. Well, yeah, but you may have more expensive energy if they do it like that. Well, the user will use it, will have to pay more. But in fact, the area for constructing, well, they will have to pay. On one side, one side may pay, or mutually. The users, well, for sure. Have you come? Well, we have time. So we have 20 minutes. As for the Federal State University, the discussion about it, about the general plan of that complex with the general projector. So that complex, we were speaking about the specific building, and it seems to me that the main building, the atrium you were talking about, I think that it's impossible, well, for the building to be like that, because it's like the trademark, that is the central place of the whole complex that was projected. Well, the learning areas were projected, and there are separate blocks, and you may even lose your way. But rational corridors, well, and such recreation, well, that is a social space, well, a symbol. Probably you would not be able, well, to find special light for that area, well, but it is academic and specific, and the atrium, which is oriented with the view, and it can, the bay Bosphor-Vostochny can be seen, and it is contrasted with the utilitarianism of the learning process. Well, no, there is not a question about the space, that it's located in the wrong place. Valery, he's the head of the department, as a person, as a body who exploits this building. It was developed like the summit object, and it's like one heart for the whole country. Well, but as for the structure of the university, it consists of schools, well, and it has to be the core, the heart, and so to learn it nicely. But where we are planning and where the designers are learning, well, there is no space and recreation areas to show what we're doing. And why don't you show it? It is functioning. There are a lot of activities all the time, and it is far. Probably it's an official thing, well, but in the daily life, well, the exposition is close to the residential area. I have one more question. Yesterday we could see the memorial to Kirill and Methody, and there was an old building. How do you feel about the old building where you have moved, the building you have moved to? Probably it is not tactful question. Well, no, that's okay. The old building was more comfortable because it was in the city and it was comfortable for students, and the students had a connection with the cultural environment. And there we are in the reservation. As for the architects, well, so it was the bay. Well, it's like the textbook, and in the new building there is more comfort, more clean area as well. But something have been lost. And but where the memorial is, well, the place is dying out now. Well, unfortunately, there are two monuments. Well, two cities sisters. And unfortunately, that memorial was cut, and the second one, the monument to Kirill and Methody, was constructed before the bridge construction, and there were special stretching lines so to preserve it. But that's a part of the core, our heart, rest from the city. I'd like to add to Anatoly Ivanovich on the infrastructure, about the road infrastructure. There was during the first presentation of Leonid Blyakhin, and he told, I remember his phrase, the development of the territory depends on the road development. I would not to humiliate, well, the essence to build a school or a kindergarten, and who will use it, 100, 500 students. But if we build a road, a highway, 10,000 people will use it. And I consider, like Leonid told, the priority should be given to the development of this road transportation infrastructure, and that is a development of the sector of construction materials, working places, mechanisms. Not to speak about the others things, safety on the road, making lower expenses on transportation of cargoes and other factors. During summit in Vladivostok, new roads and bridges were built, and it significantly improved the unloaded the city, and it improved the work of the port, and increased the cargo turnover. And now we can speak about the economy of the Vladivostok customs, where 54% of customs money Vladivostok port gives it. If we increase the enterprises outcome, well, so it will part of transport will be in a different direction, different roads. It will increase the level of life of people, and the project is moving. The idea of cutting the Belt Road, but it is a political name. Well, another name is longer. And Vladivostok Belt Road, abbreviation cut. This project has been developed, and it were different variants of this road were taken into consideration, and there were different technical features, and I would not like to be to speak thoroughly about it. Well, but today technical parameters are not the main issue, but there is a stage of planning. The main thing is what the road can give to Vladivostok, and first we can improve the work of the seaport, unload. The cargo transport can be used through a different road on the island Truski, and this project of the Belt Road is organically included in the program, and that is a special program, Primorye 1. The Belt Road is closely connected, and it will be added to Primorye 1, and the length is 20 kilometers. And the criteria developed. About 55 million rubles are needed, and during the construction period, and it is split into special stages, and every stage may work appropriately and independently, and we have the outcome from this project. And we can do it in a parallel way or a sequenced one, and we'll get the shortage of transportation time. Will increase the cargo flow. We have decreased the self-cost of ecology and this project for infrastructure. And I would like to repeat after Leonid, someone is building temples or ships. Well, we decided that temples to build is good, well, but we need to build vessels and roads, and the roads would be the vessel of our economy. Okay. I would like to speak about funding, construction, project bureau, engineering, networks, and transport networks. Social infrastructures were also included in this session. If we speak about infrastructure, so we at least have to understand what kind of infrastructure we are having. As far as I know, in no one municipal entity, there is no automatic system on software on transportation and engineering. There are separate enterprises in separate municipals, and there are separate, and there is no one whole picture, well, to make analytical analysis. And if to speak about infrastructure, it's needed to develop the automatic system, well, for monitoring, for decisions, project decisions, and there should be the unified operator in CRI, and only then to give qualified solutions. I would like to say a few words about funding. I was speaking about the Belt Road. We don't ask the federal center, we don't ask for money, but we have found found investors, and we are coming to the final stage, and we have both Russian and foreign investors who are ready to invest in the construction of roads, the Belt Road, and if the federal center is eager to help and to have co-financing, well, that will make easier for the further investments, well, in payment cluster. And today we are looking for investors and get into final stage. Here is a microphone. We were named experts. I am mayor of Khabarovsk city, and I would like a little bit to introduce more practical things in our talk. Well, there is a research of effective search for management of processes on the municipal level as well, and development, and there is a process of permanent reforming. But it's impossible to live in permanent reforming during one period of election period for 4 years. To have 5 reforms, well, that's wrong, and we need to give recommendations. Well, to regulate the management system. In 90s, when the management system was developed, some bills were translated from English into Russian. The model was introduced. Unfortunately, well, there is neither old nor a new one, and they don't give an effect. And there was an effort, well, to make the authorities' rights, well, it will not get the result to extract land plans, well, land relationship in 5-7 years. Well, there will be the backcoming, and it had already been in the country, such experiments, and the first ones who came to city manager are coming back, well, because the main task, well, is to include the population, well, people. The psychology has to become different, well, but we have psychology. When Leonid told that, he said, what is the first thing? Well, consumering or the development? Well, how much money to eat, and how much is funding for development? And it's better to choose the priority of priority. As for Khabarovsk, I will say we have never seen such big money, and we will not be able to see such funding. But we do not see funding, and shortly we have to find the ways of finding funds, and we are out of the funds frames, and we are earning, and some criticize, and the others are not satisfied, and there is management which is on the management base. And last year there was the brick plants, and 30% less became the price of bricks. Well, after building that, as for the construction materials, 30% less price, and the price of the market, housing market, well, is getting lower. And if we have high prices for apartment houses, and the country has to define what kind of management model should be. We have seen the Western style and decided, well, to introduce city. London was introduced. There was a direct management, direct governmental management. Well, they have eaten that thing, and we're coming back. And some people damaged their forehead, and we are moving. What the experience of China is good. The intelligence things have to be made quickly, and according to the will. There should be the development. If we are going to follow the legislation basis, it will take 10 years. Well, yes, we are constructing the kindergartens, well, out of the dream. But it looks like the sanatorium in the old times. Well, if there is a swimming pool, if there is a dining hall, it's for the division of soldiers. The modern equipment, marmots are used, and the price, the cost of one child is 1 million rubles, or sometimes 3 million rubles. Probably there is a joke of Leonid, but we'll have to think what is first, how to invest 1 ruble, and how much we'll get back. What a ruble we have eaten out, well, we'll get nothing from that. But as an example, not 30 years ago, Vladivostok spent, as for the aspects of planning, design, well, about 22, 24 years ago, it was what we've heard, and that was also management. The less authoritative power have the municipal bodies, the less population is included in the solution. And as for psychology in the scalp, depends a lot of things depend on psychology. Have you noticed that psychology in Vladivostok has changed a lot? They streamline well to development and designing, and that is the most important thing. Well, to know what how psychology will be, but psychology works like we pay taxes, give us roads. Vladivostok is collecting 700 million of road funds. Only serving of roads costs 3,800,000,000 and million rubles, and lighting, green areas, fences, and we need to understand what we really need, and we need funds. Don't believe that in other hands this ruble will work more efficiently. Medical service, health care, it was 900 million rubles, well, but 1,800,000,000 rubles were extracted. Why? Because $500 billion can be seen that they would be funded in the medical care, but in 5 years there would be the first aid should be got well in the small areas. Well, I can speak about different things about roads. For 70 million 1,100 roads in the city, what is redistributed from the central, the federal law got on the shoulders of the city, and how to deal with the municipal and where is it reasonable, and what about China? We are going to China, and we can see that the policy is reasonable, and it's wanted that to have less mistakes. And as for the questions on the infrastructure, mostly we use our own abilities. Well, in this water fence is the big water underground, and it is prepared underground. As for the sewage cleaning, 60% of cleaning, and it allows to purify 98% of water. And water route, there is a complete gap. Well, and no one constructor wants to invest in expenses, but that's the urban planning. And there, Yelena Sierra said that there should be complex construction, and who will make the water to be cleaned, or not even to be cleaned, well, but to get another the other direction. Well, where are the mechanisms? But if to get it into the territory in Cry, well, it will never lead from the regional area to the remote areas, and the urban infrastructure is absolutely different for every small site and city. And there are different approaches. And the last thing about slums area, poor buildings, the government has dropped, and there are apartment houses of militaries, municipal things. Well, the municipals have to develop the projects. Well, it was forced to do that. We do not have to hide in the program for damaging the damaged. We may destroy psychology of people who are living here. We need the governmental program. And if we have the program like that, Yuri Krupnov has already underlined, well, a lot of questions. And the main question in our country, the state management will have this management system or will not. Sorry, we have a shortage of time. I always support your idea on the municipal governing. I remember your speech at the meeting with the president. I don't think that it is right. Well, but it's an effective system. Not everyone is able to do that. We have 1 minute, and okay. I didn't understand what were the frames and as for the minutes of discussion. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody, to the audience, presenters.